Hello everybody, AJ Reissig here, and today we are doing our review of Ubuntu 18.04. Now, probably a lot of you saw my rant, and that's what I labeled it as, sometime last week, complaining about all the issues that I had with Ubuntu 18.04. I I pretty much got most of it ironed out. Ended up easiest way to at least for me to get a good install was I did a fresh install, and during the installation process you have a choice of selecting to install updates while doing the installation process. I deselected that and then updated after the entire installation was complete, and things worked better. I didn't have the crashes and all that. It was still a slow startup, and I've gone and pulled the boot up log so I can take a look at what's slowing my system down. But for now, things are running good enough that I can do the review. So, having said that, let's get to the computer and we'll get this review started. So, let's start by taking a look at the new welcome screen. Now, the opening, I guess you want to call page, you could call it. Um, it walks you through the basics of the desktop. Now, I'm going to go over that a little bit later, so I won't spend too much time on it right here. So let's move on to Live Patch. Now this allows Canonical to keep your computer secure by applying some updates that normally would require you to restart your system. Now you need to go and set up Live Patch if you want to use it. You'll need to put in your password, and then after that put in your email address and password if you already have a Ubuntu single sign-on account, or you need to register for your account. I'm just going to cancel out of that for right now. And here, this one's been kind of a big deal. Um, at least people have made it into a big deal, and this all comes down to the fact that a lot of people are trying to make it out that Ubuntu is now the new Windows 10 and is hijacking your data and all. No. All they really want to do is they want to know what you're installing Ubuntu on. What kind of processor, your video card, how much RAM, all that kind of stuff, and just so that it helped them with developing the product. So yeah, they're collecting data, but it's nothing nefarious. Now, obviously, we as users are going to want to keep an eye on what they are collecting. Nice thing that is that since this is open source software, we can actually do that. Finally, we get to this area where we can go and we can install some software from here. We can open our software center and install software from there. And yeah, personally, I don't know how they decided what made the grade on as far as being these highlighted softwares. But let's just try installing Brave. Click on it. You get this install page in the software center. Click install, and you'll need to put in your password, and the whole installation process begins. It's just a matter of sit back and wait. Very easy to do. Tell you what, while that is installing, why don't we go and we'll take a look around in the software center. So you've got categories here. You've got some editors picks. Once again, I don't know what how they decide on what is an editor pick and what isn't. I don't know if it's the number of star ratings or how they do that. You've also got a keyboard search. So like in my case, I'm looking for Inkscape. I can go and do that. Find Inkscape, or you can go and do some browsing around. Um, Lots and lots of software. That is one of the big pluses of having a Ubuntu or a Ubuntu based distribution is software selection is pretty broad. There's a lot of stuff there. Um, there is a fair amount of stuff that is multi-platform, so if you're coming from another platform, You might recognize some of it. Some of it's probably going to be new to you. This cherry tree, for example, it's available on multiple platforms. Excellent note-taking application, by the way. Definitely worth taking a look at. And that is about it for the Welcome Center. The Ubuntu developers have made a considerable effort to try to, one, help with the new users, people who are new to Ubuntu, and also for the people that are transitioning from Ubuntu 16.04 to 18.04 and they are new to the GNOME desktop. Previously back if you were somebody coming from the 16.04 desktop that used the older Unity desktop, now we're on the GNOME desktop. And the workflow is different. And in this little help section that they have added, and it's locked into your favorites, they've got a desktop help guide, and it covers a variety of different things. But they've added some videos in there so you can see some demos, and I've watched a few of them. They're pretty good. Now I will say I did a YouTube video. It's been a while now, but I did a YouTube video on uh, the GNOME 3 workflow, how to efficiently use that desktop, because it is not a traditional desktop. It's going to be different from if you're coming from, say, Windows or Mac, even coming from the old Unity desktop. It is not a traditional layout. The workflow is different. So if you're interested in checking out that video, seeing how to, more efficiently use the GNOME desktop, definitely check that out. I'll leave a link down in the video description. So let's do a quick walkthrough of the desktop layout. Now over on the left hand side we've got our dock, and you can pin favorites to there. Uh, click on an icon, it'll open up the application. Right click it and you'll get some options there. New window, remove it from favorites, show the details. Show details just pulls open the software center and you can read the description. Now you can see right here where it says simple screen recorder. I've actually got that open over on on my other monitor. But applications that have a little dot next to them, those are running applications. The dots down at the bottom will show you, click on that and it'll show you all of your applications or your frequently used applications depending on how you've got it selected. And you get a fair amount of software installed by default here, and you can kind of scroll through the multiple pages. You get more pages as you get more pieces of software installed, that sort of thing. Now, other than, of course, you watch me install Brave, Simple Screen Recorder, I've installed that for doing my screen recording here. Also installed VLC because I really like that as a media player. I like it much better than the default videos. Oh, another thing that I wanted to show you on, let's go and click the Show Applications button again. You can also do a keyboard search. So you can type in, Writer, and it'll pull up LibreOffice Writer, that sort of thing. Now, up in the upper left corner is the Activities button. You click on that, and once again, the search pops open. You also and you can go and once again search for a specific application or file. You also over on the right hand side have access to your workspaces, and you can move applications from one workspace to the other. Now if you're not real familiar with workspaces, it is a way that, think of it as virtual desktops. It gives you multiple desktops to work on, even if you only have one monitor. So let's open up, I'm going to open up a bunch of different applications here, and I'll kind of give you an idea for those that aren't familiar with the whole workspaces concept. So we've got a bunch of applications open, and we'll take this one here, drag it, and you can see as I move stuff to another workspace, additional ones are created, and now you can keep your applications more organized uh, by using these multiple workspaces, and you can scroll through them. You can use keyboard shortcuts to scroll through, whichever way you want to work with it. And this is dynamic, so as you close applications up in workspaces, once we get an empty workspace and move on to another, it eliminates. You're always going to have one unused workspace, but it eliminates all the others. So next to the activities buttons, it's going to show you the title of the whatever application is currently open, and by clicking on that, you'll have the option to quit. In the center, we've got our notifications and calendar. By clicking on the little day and time at the top there, that pops open that little box. And then over on the right hand side, you'll have any indicators for, in this case, I've got simple screen recorder running, and then next to that, we've got our sound and volume, that sort of thing, our connections, wireless settings, Bluetooth settings, um, all that kind of stuff can be controlled from right there in the corner. Right clicking on our desktop, we get the option of we can create a new folder there. Um, you can go and go and change your background from here. Clicking on change the background, it'll open up your settings um, application, and then from there under background you can go through, take a look at the pre-installed backgrounds, choose one of those if you like one of those. If you got some pictures in your picture folder you'd like to use as a background, you can do that, or if you want a solid color. But yeah, let's change it to, yeah, I like that. That's not bad looking. And you can go and change your lock screen as well. While we're here, we'll just kind of go through all the settings there. You got Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. I don't have any Bluetooth devices in here, so that's not going to do anything. A few little settings for the dock. Not a whole lot, but a few things that you can do here. Icon size, I usually shrink that down 35 to 40. The default, I think, is a little large. You can pick what screen you want the dock shown on. In my case, both of them, even though I got dual monitors, both are the same model and manufacturer, so they show up the same. And you can move the dock around, whether you want it on the left, the right, or the bottom, whatever works for you. Personally, I like to keep it over on the left-hand side. Notifications, you can tweak which applications give you notifications. Some tweaking for the search there. You can play around with your region and language, universal access. So if you need high contrast, large text, large cursor, all that kind of stuff, this is the place to play around with that. Online accounts. So if you want to sync up your Google account, Facebook, Flickr, whatever. Uh, you can do that from here. Privacy, you got some different options on privacy, how you want your screen to lock up. Do you want it on? Do you want it off? Usage and history, purging temporary files, that sort of thing. Um, Sharing options right there. Sound options here, so you can play around with what your default audio, your input, your output, all that kind of stuff. Play around with device settings here, power saving, that kind of thing. Network connections, set up a VPN from here, proxies. Under devices, first up is displays, and if you're working with multiple monitors, you can move them around. Do you want them stacked? Do you want them side by side? Which is the primary? Which is your secondary? Um, do you want the monitors mirrored, or do you just want to use a single monitor? Scaling, all that kind of stuff you'll find here. It's pretty self-explanatory. Um, Also got a nightlight option, so if you're gonna, and it'll kind of redden the display when it's active, so a little easier on the eyes at night time. Got all your keyboard shortcuts here. Now, if you're gonna, if personally, what I would do for the new user is maximize this window, go and take a screenshot of it so that you got a quick reference for all these shortcuts. Uh, Personally, I don't have them all memorized. There's a fair number of these that I use on a regular basis, so I got those memorized. Moving on, we got the mouse and touchpad options. You can select what's the primary button, what's left, what left and right does. Uh, Printer setup from here. In my case, since I got a HP wireless printer and a late model one, there is no installing software or anything. It's just automatically detected and boom, ready to go. I will go in here and tweak a few of the settings though. Let me see if I can find it here. Where is it? There you go. Under printer options, I always like to have uh, long edge two-sided printing set as my default. If I do need to print a single-sided something, I'll set that up on an individual basis. Removable media. What do you want to happen? I like leaving it just as the default what to do. And down finally on the bottom, color calibration, so you can color calibrate your monitors, that sort of thing. Down on details, this it shows a little bit about your system. You can tweak your date and time here. Users, you can add users there, and then default applications, you can reset what your default applications for music, video, calendar, all that kind of stuff. And for those curious, here you can see a little bit about my system. 16 gigs of RAM, processors AMD FX 8320. So let's talk a little bit about software. Now, if you are coming from Windows or you're coming from Mac, in Ubuntu and most Linux distributions, you will find that a majority of the software that you need for your day-to-day activities is already pre-installed for you. And if it's not, the bulk of what you're going to need, you will find in the software center. That's not to say that there's something special that's out there on the internet that you want to download and install, that sort of thing. However, for a majority of people, everything you need is, if it's not already installed, it's probably going to be there in the software center. So let's take a look at some of the software. I'm not going to cover everything in detail, but just a kind of a little bit of a look around there. There's a couple of basic games installed. Got Isle Royale, Mines. Thought there was some more Sudoku. So a few games installed. A lot of games in the that are available through the software center. Um, let's see what else we got. Cheese is a webcam application. Very good webcam application, actually. There's another one that I use that I actually prefer over Cheese, called GUC Video. That one really a lot more customizable than Cheese. Cheese is really good in that it just seems to work right out of the box, no tweaking, no nothing. GUVC a Little more work is needed to get it tuned in, but it is very customizable. So a couple different directions you can go with that. Firefox is your default web browser, and LibreOffice is your office suite. If you are coming from Microsoft and you're not familiar with LibreOffice, it is probably the best of the open source office suites out there. Real good compatibility with, especially when you're looking at text documents. There's real good compatibility with Microsoft Word. So uh, definitely a good office suite. So we got that stuff going on. Rhythmbox is your music player. Really like that. Once again, there's a lot of other options as far as music players. If you want to check out the Software Center and take a look at those, Shotwell is a good basic photo manager. Um, Once again, there's others available that have a lot more features, that have a lot more options, especially when it comes to actual video or not video editing, but photo editing. But as far as a easy to use, fast to use, very quick to learn piece of software, good option to go with. And what we got here, we got. I'll talk a little bit about the software updater and that in just a minute. Transmission is your BitTorrent, is for BitTorrent clients. Um, pretty good option. There's a few others available in the Linux world, but on its own, pretty good tool there. Thunderbird is your email client. And while the user interface, I believe, needs some work, and actually, from what I have read, there's some work in process on giving it a better user interface. Very functional, tons of extensions, so very customizable. New piece of software that they've just added by default is this to do application. It's one of the part of the Gnome suite. I was playing around with this a little bit on when I was running Solus, and it's pretty good to do application. So you can set up to do list. If you have to do lists on your Google account, you can go and sync with them. So nice little feature there. But you can create a new list, and like I had just created this list called to do. So let's Ubuntu 1804 review. Can't spell. And you can continue on with your list, and it's a checkable list, so you'll be able to click it when when the tasks are done. And as you make these lists, it'll pop up in these on this main screen, so you can have multiple to-do lists. So pretty nice application for trying to keep your life organized. And what others did I want to talk about? In here in utilities, that's kind of, think of it as a software folder. Click on that, and it's going to pull open your utilities. So you got a document viewer, screenshot recorder, set up backups, archive manager, disk usage analyzer. Disk allows you to do a few different things with disk, but biggest thing I use it for is just checking information on disk and partitions, and you can look at how different drives are formatted, that sort of thing. One final piece of software that I want to take a look at is the File Manager, which it formerly was known as Nautilus File Manager. Now it is just simply known as Files. Now this is the one piece of the GNOME software suite, or GNOME applications, however you want to refer to it, that has not been updated to version 3.28. It is version 3.26.3. Now, the reasoning for holding this back to the older version is the newer, starting with 328, you do not have support for desktop icons, and it's a feature that the Ubuntu developers wanted to keep. Personally, it's not something that I care about because one of the first things that I do on a desktop is get rid of the desktop icons. I don't want to see them. My desktop is going to be filled with whatever application or applications that I'm working on, and having icons on the desktop is just a waste for me. And if I'm going to launch something, it's either going to be from over in a dock like that, or I will do a keyboard search, preferably a keyboard search, because then I know I'm getting what I want. But anyway, so that's why they held that back. Now, the Nautilus file manager, it is in its default state. It does not have a ton of features. It's got the basics covered. You've got a nice, I guess you could consider it a quick launch over at the start, and you can add bookmarks to to various places. So if you, inside of your documents folder, and you had a couple of other folders there, you could bookmark them. They'd show up over here, and you'd be able to get to them really quick. Other locations, that's going to show not only your root drive but other hard drives that are on this particular computer. It'll also show network drives, that sort of thing for you. And like I said, in its default state, it you've got basic options. You got when you right click, you got cut, copy, move to, move to trash, rename, compress, stuff like that. Properties tells you a little bit about whatever particular file you've selected, but not a ton of options. However, there are different available extensions that will give you additional functionality into the Nautilus file manager. But compared to a few of the other Linux file managers that are out there, it just doesn't have a ton of features. But for the most part, for what it does it well. I want to take a quick minute and look at the software updater. So let's go to that, and you can see, you can click on it, and boom, it starts checking for software updates. And oh, we don't have anything to update, so nothing to do there. Let's go into the updater settings, and this will actually open up the application called software and updates. Now there's a few different things that you can do from here. One of them, under where it says other software, you can go to there and you can select this canonical partners and be able to pull down software from there. And then you can go into updates and change how you are notified about new Ubuntu versions, or how often you want to automatically check for updates, all that kind of stuff. Now, if you make any changes, you'll need to put in your password. But you can see there, I changed notify me of new Ubuntu versions for any version. And then as far as checking, I am going to check daily. Let's see yeah, display immediately. I don't want it to automatically install and that sort of thing. Under additional drivers, if you go in here, if there are any proprietary drivers available for your hardware, they will show up here. Now it takes a minute for the system it'll scan all of your hardware, and I don't have any additional drivers that I need to install. But if there's anything that would any hardware that requires or would benefit from a proprietary driver, it'll show up there. And developer options, not a whole lot here. We'll go back under to this to the first page here. If you go and open up this, choose a download server, the Ubuntu will run a series of tests on various servers, and basically find where is the best place to pull its downloads from? What's the best connection and fastest downloads for you? Now, a lot of times there may only be maybe only one server for in a particular country or a particular region. Here in the US, there's a ton of servers all across the country, so there's a lot to scan from. And you can see it picked out a server for me, and so I'm going to stick with that one. Just choose server, and that should be about it on there. Let's go and close that up, and it's going to want to reload the cache. So it'll go and update that, and just give it a second. Okay, so now that we've been through, we've kind of looked around the desktop and all that kind of stuff. Now it kind of begs the question: is this a good distribution for a new user? Where do we go from here? First of all, I'm going to say that if you are completely new to Linux and you're coming from, say, Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows whatever, Ubuntu 18.04 is not going to be my first choice. I believe that for a very new user, Ubuntu Budgie would be a better option. Um, any of the Linux Mints, well, not any of the Linux Mints, either Linux Mint with the Mate desktop or with the Cinnamon desktop. I believe those are going to be better options for you. Um, it's not that a new user will not be able to run with regular Ubuntu with the Gnome desktop. However, you're gonna there's going to be some work that you need to do to get it set up and running. There's going to be a steeper learning curve, whereas those other distributions, they're more new user friendly. Now, if you are coming from Ubuntu 16.04, or even another Linux distribution, if you are running Linux Mint, say, um, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but as long as you're willing to take the time to learn the nuances of the GNOME shell, you're going to be all right. So from that standpoint, not going to be a big deal. But you know, I will go back on record with what I said during my rant video last week, in that I was expecting so many things to work right out of the box, much like they did in Ubuntu Budgie and Ubuntu Mate, and really all of the other Ubuntu 18.04 derivatives that I have worked with in the past couple of weeks. I have not had all the issues that I had with Ubuntu 18.04. So as long as you're willing to do some time with doing the problem solving and all that, you're probably going to be okay. Now, I did read in all the comments that I had from the rant video, a fair number of people were having the same issues that I was having. What I referred to as the orange screen of death. A fair number of people were having issues when they upgraded from 1710. There were some people that said they just could not install the system or could not install the operating system on their computer in any shape or form. So, and unfortunately, on a lot of those, I don't know whether it's somebody that is a brand new user and they really didn't know what they were doing, or it's an experienced user and yes, there are lots of problems there and they could not do it. So, from that standpoint, I don't know. I'm just kind of reporting what I read in the comment section on the video. So, take it for what it's worth. I just kind of go back to, I feel like with this being an LTS, that a lot of those issues should have been taken care of. Anyway, I do want to add that I am creating here on YouTube. I will have a Ubuntu 18.04 playlist and I'll leave a link for that down below, so that if you want to look at all kinds of stuff that has to do with Ubuntu 18.04, you'll have that whole playlist you can look at. So it'll have all of my 18.04 reviews, the Ubuntu Mate, Ubuntu Budgie, Kubuntu, and it'll take me a little time to get through the reviews of all those. I'll also have some how-to videos, a couple, for new users. Hey, here's some things to do when you first install your system, make life a little bit easier for you. Here's some tips, that kind of thing. So hopefully those things will help you out. And with that being said, I think that about finishes this review up. Hopefully you found it informative and it'll help you out. If you are not a subscriber, please subscribe. If you go down below to the bottom of the screen, you'll see where there's that little subscribe button. If you click that, you can become a subscriber, and then click that little bell icon next to it, and you will get notifications when my new videos come out, so you can stay up to date and all that kind of stuff. And as always, I hope to see you on the next video. Please share this video, and thanks a lot. See you next time.